Welcome to my follow along video for a preemie sized teddy bear hat. We're starting off by making a magic circle and we're going to do 6 half double crochets into it. And bear with me here, I always have a difficult time pulling the loop through on the first half double crochet of a magic circle. So it takes me a minute, but once we get there, we get there. So I'm just gonna pull through one at a time, and then I promise the rest are a bit easier. And I'm going to put a stitch marker in the first half double crochet of the round. Now we're going to do a slip stitch into the first half double crochet. So I like to leave my stitch marker in while I do this just so that I can see exactly where I'm going. It also kind of helps guide where my crochet hook needs to be. It does take up a little bit extra space underneath the stitch, but it works out for me. Just do whatever works best for you. Now I'm going to take the stitch marker out and I'm going to chain one, and then for this round we're going to do 2 half double crochets in each stitch. So once again, I am going to put my stitch marker in the first half double crochet, not underneath the chain. Please note here that we leave the chain empty and we do not do a stitch into it. So we're doing the half double crochets around, and then we're going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet, skipping over the chain. And now we're going to chain 1, and then for this round we're going to do 2 half double crochets in the first stitch. So I'm going to do 1, and then once again put my stitch marker in. If you are less ADHD than me, you can probably just count your stitches, but I cannot keep track of it. So I'd like to just use a stitch marker just so I can go back and double count myself. So we're doing 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, and then in the second stitch we're just going to do 1 half double crochet. Then we're going to repeat this throughout the entire round. So 2 half double crochets and then 1. So we're doing the second here in the same stitch, and then on the next stitch we're just going to do 1 half double crochet. Once again, skip the chain and slip stitch into the first half double crochet of the round. And then we're going to keep on keeping on. We're going to chain 1. We're going to do 2 half double crochets in the first stitch. Put my stitch marker in on the first. Do the second half double crochet into this stitch. And now we're going to do 1 half double crochet in the next stitch and 1 half double crochet in the next stitch. And we're going to repeat this. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets in this stitch. So there is 1, and this is number 2. And then in the next 2 stitches, we do 1 half double crochet. We're going to repeat this all the way around. You already know what I'm going to say here. We're going to skip the chain and we're going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet of the round. And you already know we're chaining one, and here's where it changes. So now we're just doing one half double crochet in each stitch around. Just like in the rounds before, at the end of this round, we are not going to put a stitch into the chain, and we are going to slip stitch into the first stitch. Okay, so we've done half double crochets all the way around. We're skipping the chain, and then we're slip stitching into the first stitch of the round. So this was round 5. We are going to do this again for rounds 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we have 5 more rounds exactly like this one. So I'm going to speed up the video so that you don't have to listen to me talk for the entire time of me doing this. Now we are finishing up the last of round 10. So for round 11, we're going to chain 1 and then do a back loop single crochet in every stitch around. So if you see here, I'm only going under the back loop and doing a single crochet. We're going to repeat this all the way around and then slip stitch into the first stitch. And just like before, we're skipping the chain and then slip stitching into the final stitch. And I'm going to do the back loop only for that as well. And now we have finished the main part of the hat. So now I'm just going to snip off the working yarn. It just needs to be long enough to get to the top of the hat. And now we're going to start on the ears. So we're going to do a magic circle once again. And then this time we're going to do 10 double crochets. So this is also a little bit difficult for me to do. So we're yarning over, pulling up the loop, and then only pulling through 2 of the loops on this one. And then doing another yarn over and pulling through both loops. And once again, I'm going to use a stitch marker, especially with these ones, because it gets a little bit difficult once I'm closing the magic ring to see exactly what is what. So I like using the stitch markers for that as well, not only just to keep count. So like I said, we're going to do 10 double crochets into this magic circle. So now that I've done 10 double crochets, I'm going to pull the yarn to go ahead and close out the circle. And this is where I really like having the stitch markers in, because it is so difficult to see where you're supposed to go if you do not have them. So I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round, just like we did on the base of the hat. Now I'm going to chain one, take my stitch marker out. Now I can actually count, so I don't have to worry about it. We're going to do 9 single crochets. So we're not going all the way around. We're going most of the way around, but not all the way. And I can count to 9, so I do not need the stitch marker for this part. So we're going to do 9 single crochets, and then this ear will be finished. Okay, so this ear is done. So I'm going to cut the yarn with enough to sew in to add it to the base of the hat. Pull through, and there's our ear. Ear number 1, I should say. We have one more to make. So once again, magic circle, and now we're going to do 10 double crochets. I don't know why this one went easier for me than the first one, but I wish that they were all this easy because the first one was definitely not it, but this one went well. So once again, put my stitch marker in so that I know where I'm supposed to go. And now we're finishing out the rest of the 10 double crochets of this round. Now that I've gotten to 10, we're pulling the string to close out the circle, and then we're going to do a slip stitch into the first double crochet, using the stitch marker as a guide so that we know what we're doing. And then just like before, we're going to chain one. If I can find the correct piece of yarn, we're going to chain one, and then we're going to do 9 slip stitches, not going all the way around, just 9, slip stitches. And now this ear is done, so we are going to cut the yarn with enough to sew them on. And then pull through. And here's all of our pieces. So we have the base of the hat, and then we have the 2 ears as well. Next, we're going to use a yarn needle to hide the ends of our work. So I am threading the part that is at the bottom of the hat onto a yarn needle, and then I'm going to make a knot. I know some people don't make knots at the end of their work, but for me, I do prefer it. So I'm just going to go all the way through this stitch and make a knot. And now I'm going into the inside of the work and making a second knot just to make sure that it is very secure, just in case the hat gets washed or anything like that. I want to make sure that it does not fall apart. So now that I've finished the knot, I'm going to flip the hat inside out, and I'm just going to thread this long tail in until I get to the very top of the hat. So now that I have it at the top of the hat, I'm just going to gently stretch out the hat a little bit just to make sure that it's not pulling anything too tight and making the hat wonky. And now we're going to use the tail of the magic ring and what we just threaded through, and we're going to tie a few knots just to make sure that it's secure. And once again, make sure you're not pulling them too tight because you don't want it to actually change the shape of the hat. So just do the first one loose, and then the knots after that can be tighter. And now we're just going to snip off the ends. Make sure that the knot is secure, and then flip the hat the correct way. And now we're going to fold our hat in half wherever we see fit, and start with the ears. So I like to work with the tail from the magic circle first. So I'm going to take that and thread it through a yarn needle. And then I'm just going to go around the magic circle a couple times just to make a couple knots, just to keep everything super secure, because I really worry about things falling apart for some reason. I haven't had anything fall apart yet, even when I haven't done this, but it just makes me feel better. So I'm just going to do 2 knots going through the magic circle. And now I'm going to put the tail through the center of the circle and snip off the end. And now we'll start working with the other tail. So for this one, once again, we're going to thread the yarn through the yarn needle. And then just like with the bottom of the hat, I'm going to make a little knot just to make sure that everything is good. On this one, I'll only make 1 knot because I am going to directly sew it onto the hat. So I'm not nearly as worried about things falling apart as if it was like a loose end. Here I messed up and I just pulled it through. I thought that I had it. So we're gonna back out and try that again. So going through and actually making a knot this time. And now we're going to line up where we want our ears to be. There's no exact science to this because, you know, things can look differently, especially because there are so many different sizes for this pattern. So I like to just do it by feel, you know, go with what you feel. So I'm doing, I think, between rows 4 and 5 on this one, but it really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to sew this ear on with the little cup part facing forward, although forward is subjective at this point. And I'm just going to sew on a little bit. There's also no exact science to doing this. It is also just what you feel and what works best for you and what you like to do. I don't even think I do the left and the right ear the same way. I just wing it every time, and somehow it works out. So and now that we've sewed it on, you can sew it on more if you like, but I'm going to stop there and make a couple knots. So I'm just going to do 2 knots. Here's the first one. And we're going to do the second knot in the exact same spot. And then I'm going to put the tail into the center of the hat. So now that we've got it threaded through the center, we're going to flip the hat inside out, and then just like we did with the other tail, we're going to thread through and take it to the top of the hat, and then you could knot it off on one of these pieces if you prefer to, but what I like to do is I like to just tie it to the second ear. So I'm just going to leave it there for a few minutes, and then once we finish the second ear, we'll come back to it. So now we have the second ear. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. So I'm taking the tail from the magic circle, putting it through a yarn needle, and then making a couple knots. And then I'm going to put the tail through the center and snip the end off. And then exact same thing as last time, I'm going to take the other tail from the ear and I'm going to thread that through a yarn needle. And I'm just going to look and see where it's symmetrical. So now is when I'll actually count rows and pay attention to where it goes, just so I can make sure that it's the same on both sides. But that's all that matters, is that it's symmetrical to itself. And same thing before, we're just going to sew it on however we see fit, whatever feels good, whatever feels right. Go with your gut. No exact science to it at all. So I'm just checking to make sure that it's in the right spot before I go ahead and sew on the other side. And like I said, I don't think that I even do this the same way on both sides. So, you know, you do you. Nobody will be offended if you do it differently. And just like before, I'm going to go ahead and make 2 knots at the base of this ear. And then same as last time, I'm just going to take this and put it through the center of the hat. Pull tight to make sure I don't have any loops, and flip the hat inside out. And then I'm going to, sorry, I was not paying attention to what I was doing here, going off screen a little bit. But once again, just gonna weave these up into the center so that it can join with the other tail of the other ear. And just like before, I'm going to do the first knot kind of loose, and then I'm going to do 3 more knots that are going to be a bit tighter, but not too tight because I don't want it to misshapen the hat at all. And then we will snip the ends, flip it the right side out, and our hat is done. Look at how cute this is. I absolutely love it. This is the preemie size. There's also newborn, 0 to 3, 3 to 6, and 6 to 12. So stay tuned for those videos. Thanks for watching.